How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Lamed Vav, Daf 36 of Masechta BavaBasra. Friends, what do you want me to tell you? Some like BavaBasra kind of stuff. How does that sound? Alright, we're going to start on Daf Lamed something? Lamed Hamid Beis? Yeah. Okay. We're going to start on Daf Lamed Hamid Beis, about 5 lines from the bottom. Omar, reviewed Omarab. It says reviewed Omarab. Yisrael abba machmas akum arehu ke akum ma'akum ein lo chazok ela bishtar af Yisrael abba machmas akum ein lo chazok ela bishtar. Oh wait, one second. Okay, so be'etzem, all this chazaka stuff that we've been talking about until now, right? That Reuben can make a claim to Shimon that I bought this property from you. I've been here for 3 years already. You haven't said anything, and that works, right? Because we assume that that eventually a person might lose the star. 3 years, for 3 years you can hold on to it after, whatever, this whole kind of like mahalich of why we can assume that this property really belongs to you, even though you don't have a document. Now, this only applies to Yidden. If a Nochri tries to make that same claim, it would not work. The Nochri would have to have the document. So now, here's a scenario where, as the Rashbam points out, everybody knows that this field belonged to Reuven, okay? To Shimon, okay? Now Reuven has it. Shimon comes to Reuven. He's like, "Yo, Reuven, what's the deal? Why are you on my field?" Reuven's like, "Well, I bought it from this Nachri, and I've already been here for 3 years, and that Nachri bought it from you, and he was there for 3 years. So yeah, I don't have a document. He doesn't have a document, but like he had a chazaka, I have a chazaka. Like it's not yours, Shimon." So says the Gemara again. So a Yid so Reuven is trying to make a claim to Shimon that Reuven has a chazaka, but his chazaka is from this Nachri who he bought it from, and that Nachri also had a chazaka. So we say it's not going to work, because since Reuven's chazaka is coming on the back of Shimon, of the Akum's chazaka, ma'akum ein lo chazaka, since an Akum can't make a chazaka, so be'etzem, it's as if it doesn't exist. Well, ela b'shtar, rather we'd have to have the document, right? If the Nochri bought this property from Shimon, he would have to retain the document, and he doesn't have the document. Af Yisrael abba machmas akum ein lo chazaka ela b'shtar. So also, Reuven, who's coming from who's making a chazaka based on the fact that he got it from Shimon, he would have to have the fact that he got it from the Akum, he would have to have the proper documentation. And since he's saying, I've been here for 3 years and I bought it from this Akum, and this Akum also had his own chazaka, well, since the chazaka of the Akum is irrelevant, so be'etzem it's a chazaka she'eni matayna. So sure, Reuven has been on the field for 3 years and nobody said anything to him, but it's not coming along with the claim. What's his claim? That he bought it from this Nachri who had a chazaka, but Nachris can't make a chazaka, so he's basically, there isn't a real claim here. So you have a chazaka, but no claim, and you have to have a claim. I think that's going to be the Mishnah we're going to get to on Mem Aleph, what is it? Mem Aleph, what does it say? Okay, you have to have a taina, and here there would be no taina, because the taina that he's making, that the Akum had a chazaka, is irrelevant, because the Akums don't have chazaka. Omar Rava says, Omar Yisrael, but if Reuven had said, Ledidi Omar li Akum de Minoch Zabna, so says Rava, but if Reuven would say to Shimon, again, Ledidi Omar li Akum, that this Akum had told me, de Minoch Zabna, that he bought it from you, Shimon, Mehema, now Reuven is believed, and his chazaka is now going to work. But fact, the Gemara, that makes no sense. Mika midi de ilu akum amar lo mehemon v'ilu amar yisrael mishmei da akum mehemon. What? This doesn't make any sense. We're saying that if the akum makes the claim that he bought it from Shimon and that he has a chazaka, it's irrelevant. And yet, if Reuven makes that same claim, if it's not the Akum who's making the claim, right? If the Akum says, I bought it from Shimon and I have a chazaka, it's irrelevant. But if Reuven says that the Akum told me that he bought it from Shimon and that he has a chazaka, all of a sudden that would change. I mean, if the claim itself doesn't work, that I bought it from Shimon, well then why does it matter because Reuven's quoting him? What difference does that make? If the claim of the Akum is irrelevant, it's irrelevant. I don't care who's quoting it. So, shall I read that again? Sure, why not? So, mi'ika midi de'ilu Akum amar lo me'im. Does it make sense? Is there anything that if the Akum would make the claim, it doesn't work? But ve'ilu amri so mishmei the Akum. But if a Yid quotes the Akum making that claim, mehem, and all of a sudden it's trustworthy. Rava says Rava, Yisrael. No, if what Reuven claims is Kame Didi Zabna Akum Minoch. So Shimon comes to Reuven, he says, Reuven, why are you on my property? Reuven says, whoa. Reuven says, whoa, wait, Shimon, 1 second. I bought this property from this Nochri. Right, Reuven says, I bought this property from this Nochri. I've been here for 3 years. I have a chazaka. Nobody gave me a hard time. And this Nachri bought the property from you. How do I know that the Nachri bought the property from you? I was there. I saw it. So I bought this property from this Nachri. I have a chazaka. And I know that the Nachri brought it from you because I saw the Nachri buy it from you. I was there. Again, Elamai Rava, Iyamar Yisuf, the Yid says, Kame Didi, Zabna Akum Minoch. Reuven says that I was present when the Akum purchased the property from you, Shimon. Vizabna niali, and then he sold it to me and I have a chazaka. Mehemin, then Reuven is believed. Migo, the iboy amalei, onazabinto minoch. Because if Reuven was lying, he would have just said, I have a chazaka, right? Which I do, right? I have witnesses who could testify. I've been here for 3 years. Nobody gave me a hard time. So Reuven could prove that he has a chazaka, which he does have. And if he was a liar, he would just make that one technical change to his claim, which is, I bought it directly from Shimon. If he was a liar, Reuven would say, right, Shimon would come to Reuven and say, what are you doing on my property? If Reuven was a liar, he'd say, well, I bought it from you and I have a chazaka. But he didn't say that. He said, I bought it from the Nachri, but I was there when the Nachri bought it from you. So because if he was a liar, he would have just said, Minoch zabinta v'achatashni chazaka, but he didn't say that, so therefore we could trust that what he is saying is truthful. And that when he says that he was present when the Nachri bought the property from Shimon, we believe him. And therefore, Betzim, what he's saying is that Shimon sold the property to this Nachri, and Reuven then purchased the property from the Nachri. He now has a chazaka. There's nothing wrong with that. From Rabbi Yehuda says, Ayman dinokit magol v'sevlai. We saw this the other day. Somebody who chaps a scythe. Remember, I don't know what that is. Is it a sickle? Is a scythe the same thing as a sickle? I feel like I've asked this before, maybe even like 2 days ago. But before then, I think I also asked it. Okay. Yeah, I think that was one of the first interactions I had with Rav Aaron Brody. I think he sent me an email about the scythe, maybe. V'amar Rav Yehuda, somebody has a scythe and a rope. And he says, Ezil Igzir Ladikla Deflania, I am going to go and harvest. Right, so Reuven's got these tools and he says, I'm going to harvest Shimon's tree. The Dikla Deflania, the Zabanta Mine, what? The Zabanta Mine, because I purchased the right to the fruits from him. Mehem, he's believed. Because Lochatzav Inish Lemigzar Dikla Delav Delay, because a person wouldn't be so chutzpahdik as to harvest the fruits of a tree that doesn't belong to him. From Revuda says, Amanda Achzik, what? Wow, it's the morning. I've already had 2 coffees. I feel like it would be nice to have another coffee right now. I feel like I'm like mumbling my words. But I'm pretty awake. I've been awake for a lot of hours. But still, it's kind of the morning. V'amar Revuda says, Ayman, you see, I think I just, anyways, whatever. You all figure it out, right? You've been listening for me to long enough. Oof, I'm really not talking very good. But I feel like you've been listening to me for long enough. You've been hearing me for long enough that you could probably deal with me not making sense. Yeah. Okay. V'amar Rav Yehuda, says Rav Yehuda, Hamanda achzik magoida, oh no, miguda de arode ulevar, lo have chazaka my time, meimer omer, kol dezara nami arode achle lei. This is talking about a scenario where Shimon owns a field next to a forest. Now in the forest there are all sorts of wild animal things that are going to come out to the forest and raid Shimon's field and eat his produce. That's a problem that Shimon needs to deal with. Okay? So one way to deal with this is to say, look, I'm going to put up a fence. Okay, great. And I'm going to leave some of my property outside of the fence. And there I'm just going to, plant some random seeds there and stuff, just to have epis there, right? Because if I can create a decoy, if I can satisfy these animals with, just some stuff that I plant, he probably doesn't invest too much time there. He throws out some seeds over there, whatever grows, whatever it is. If he can have some stuff there for the animals to eat, well then they'll have no reason to go into his field where he has the stuff that he cares about. So you have Shimon who puts up a fence and he leaves some of his property outside of the fence and he throws some seeds over there and whatever grows, and then the animals have what to eat and they'll leave his proper field alone. So again, the Amr of Yehuda says, so Reuven now comes to this property that Shimon left outside of the fence for the animals to eat. And Reuven starts working that land. And he makes a chazaka miguda de arude from the fence that's meant to keep out the wild animals, ulevar, meaning outside of the fence. Lehavi chazaka. So Reuven comes, he starts working the land and planting and thising and thating. And then after 3 years, he makes the claim that this is his. He bought it from Shimon. He has a chazaka. Nah, it's no chazaka. Because you know what Shimon says, my time? Because Shimon says, I had no reason to be moiche, right? And normally, the whole reason why a chazaka, part of the construct of a chazaka is that it works because we say, well, Shimon, what were you waiting for? If you never sold the property to Reuven, why were you just sitting around while Reuven was busy working your field and pretending like it was his? You should have said something. But in this case, it's not clear that he should have said something. Because Meimar Amr, Shimon says, Kol Dazar Nami, I wrote the Achlelei. The reason why I didn't protest is because I'm like, Reuven's an idiot. I don't, what are you doing? You're planting all the animal. There's a reason why I left that property there. Why would I just give up part of my property and leave it outside of the fence? Because there's an issue with pests, and I'd rather them eat whatever grows there than in my field. But the point is, whatever Reuven grows there, he's not going to get any benefit from it. Right there, that land is useless. The pests come and they eat it. So Shimon says, look, I didn't sell that property to Reuven. Why didn't I say anything for 3 years? Because I didn't feel the need to say. And it's not like, this is, land that I was, looking to, I don't know, how do I say this? I mean, this wasn't land that I was benefiting from. It was literally there as to keep out the pests. If Reuven wants to plant it, then the pests will eat his crops rather than mine. It's not like I benefit anything from it. I didn't sell it to him, but it also didn't, make it. Oh, what does Rashi say? Rashi says something great, actually. This is really, I think, the real reason. I think that's an important use. So not Rashi, Rashbam. He says, I think this is probably a good way to explain it. Especially the Rashbam says that. He didn't make a normal chazaka, right? And I guess that's the point, right? It's and that gets back to what I was saying a minute ago, right? Normally the reason why a chazaka works is because, if Shimon didn't sell the land, as I said a few minutes ago, to Reuven, so then why would he let Reuven take ownership of his land? It makes no sense. So from the fact that he was quiet, it must mean that he sold it. But here, if we ask the same question, Shimon, why were you just quiet when Reuven was planting there? It's because that's not a normal place to plant, right? Yeah, so he wasn't making a normal chazaka, so I didn't I didn't protest, but he didn't make a normal chazaka. I don't need to protest against an abnormal chazaka. So therefore, it still belongs to Shimon. Wow, that was kind of loopy, but hopefully that made sense. The Amr of Yehuda, it says of Yehuda, Ochla Orla, you can add also Shvius v'Kilayim, as we see in the next line. That's what the BavaBasra says. Ochla Orla Shvius v'Kilayim, if Ruvain is making a chazaka on the land, but one of those years or more of those years, the produce is Orla, or it's Shemitah that year, or it's Kilayim, right? Orla and Kilayim are things that he can't get any benefit from. Shemitah, everything's hefker anyways. So ain't a chazaka, he's not making a chazaka that way. Also, I think probably because, what does Rashi say? Wait, this is what? Oh, that's something else. But basically, this is also another scenario where he's, what does it say? Right, again, right, this is the reason why Shimon was not moche while Reuven was making a chazaka is because Reuven can't get any benefit anyways from Orla and Kilayim, and Shemitah is hefker anyways, so Shimon didn't feel the need to be moche, but it still belongs to Shimon. Tanya Nam Yochri, also in a price like this, Achla Orla Shvius v'Kilayim Eina Chazaka. Omer of Yosef, did I skip anything? I hope not. I don't think so. I think there were 4 statements of Rav Yehuda, Omer Rab. I hope I didn't skip anything. Yeah, I'm not super tired, but my brain isn't fully on yet. And I've been up for a long time. Been up for 5-6 hours already. My brain still isn't really turned on. But what time is it? It's probably only 7. Omer of Yosef, says of Yosef, Achla Shachas Lohavi Chazaka. Says of Yosef that if Ruvain is eating from the field, but he's harvesting it prematurely, he's not letting it fully grow before he harvests it. So Lohavi Chazaka, it's not a chazaka, because Rashbam says, now that was the Rashbam that I accidentally read earlier, right? What does he say? He says because any normal person would let their produce grow till its full growing amount and then harvest it. This guy seems like, there's something weird going on here. He's quickly trying to harvest it as quickly as he can. Why? Probably because he's scared that he's going to get busted. So therefore, Shimon didn't feel that the need to protest because Reuven's strange actions on the land, on the property, during his quote-unquote chazaka should speak for itself. Why was he always harvesting it so early? What was he scared of? Why normal people would wait until it's fully grown? So, therefore, it's not a proper chazaka. Marava says, Rava vi betzaver machoza, but if it's in the area of Machoza was a wealthy area where Rava was the Murda Asra, and there people had lots of animals and they needed animal feed, and you would harvest animal feed early just to be able to feed the animals. So there, Taka, it would be a chazaka because then they would be normal to harvest things early to feed to animals. So then it would be a chazaka because it would be normal there. Omer of Nachman says of Nachman, Tafticha le'avi chazaka. Okay, if there's if the land is all cracked and split, and Reuven then makes a chazaka on it, it's not a chazaka because Shimon's what's he this land isn't good, it's not. Right, what does Rashbam say? Because it's it's bad land. Shimon was just whatever. But it's not that he sold it to Reuven. He just, I don't know, for whatever reason was indifferent that Reuven was working there, either because he felt that Reuven wouldn't have any success there anyways, or it just wasn't worth his effort. But Shimon didn't act. It's not an indication, or it's not like Shimon was going to work the land, and it's why is he letting Reuven work it? So rather, so a land like that would not be a chazaka. Apikora v'ayil kora, in a scenario where Reuven. What the heck was that? Excuse me. What? Wait, that makes no sense. That makes no sense at all. Wait, 1 second. That makes no sense at all. Alright, I'm gonna have to figure. Yeah, like I just got the sound that like my noise canceling headphones just died or something, but A, they're like off, and B, I just charged them. That's weird. That's pretty weird. Okay, I'll have to look into this later. I'll go upon him. So apikor v'ayilkor, if Reuven plants a core and harvests a core, lo have chazaka, it's not a chazaka. Meaning, normally, I'm not a farmer, but I think basically the way it goes is like you plant like a wheat seed, but the yield that you get from it is like lots of wheat seeds. Like in a wheat stalk, I don't know how many wheat seeds do you get in a wheat stalk? Probably like a whole bunch, right? So if you plant one core, I don't know, you're probably looking to make, I guess like a yield of like 50 core or something like that. Like, you know, the yield is a lot more than the what you plant, which, right, the output is more than the input, which is, I guess why you can like save some of the seeds for planting, and then, you know, so you can like, I guess, let's say if you plant one core of seeds and you get 50 core of yield, so then you could sell 49 of them, leave one core, and then do the same thing next year, and you keep on getting a yield. But if you reap exactly what you sow, so then that's not really a sustainable crop. So therefore, if Reuven makes a chazaka like that, it's not a chazaka, because it's, you know, again, Shimon didn't think to be mocha because, you know, there wasn't any real value there. And when it comes to the Reish Galusa, they cannot make chazakas on our land, and we cannot make chazakas on their land. How come? Well, the Reish Galusa cannot make chazaka on our land because the Reish Galusa was very scary and powerful. And therefore, you know, so if the Reish Galusa comes to Shimon's land and is there for 3 years, and then he claims that it's his after 3 years and that he bought it from Shimon, it's not a proper chazaka because maybe he did steal it. Maybe Shimon did not sell it. Okay, then why wasn't Shimon mocha? He was too scared. Reish Galusa is powerful. They're the most powerful Jewish families, the exilar. So he's too scared to be mocha. So therefore, you know, that's a reason why Shimon wasn't mocha, and therefore, we can't assume that there's a proper chazaka there, and also we can't make chazakas on their properties because the Reish Galusa, as the Rashbam says, the Reish Galusa owns so much property. He could own 100 properties. So the Reish Galusa says, look, I didn't sell any properties to Reuven. I'll tell you that much. But look, I have all these properties. I'm not working all of the properties. If Reuven wants to come and work the property, okay, better he work it than it just sit there doing nothing, right? I'm not going to be working it. So he says, look, if Reuven wants to work it, he can work it. I definitely didn't sell it to him. And also, anyways, you know, Reuven basically has no chance against the Reish Galusa. Anyways, if the Reish Galusa wants to come and take it back, he'll take it back. So for that reason, Reuven can't actually make a chazaka on Shimon's property on the Reish Galusa's property. If he really bought it from the Reish Galusa, he would have to hold on to the document. So the Mishnah had said that avodim is a chazaka 36 months, right? 3 years, miyom liyom. Avodim yeshleim chazaka, but one second, can you really make a chazaka on avodim? V'amar Ishlak, well, what the heck is going on here? V'amar Ishlak, yo, these headphones are getting super weird. One second. Alright, those headphones kind of stopped working. Alright, this is going to be weird because I'm so used to having the headphones in, but I'm going to have to look into that. They were literally fully charged. Alright, Al Koponim, here we go. Where are we? If the power washers come, I'm going to have to probably put back in the headphones. Alright, hopefully they won't come. Let's just finish up. Okay, but Avodim yesh lehem chazaka. So the avodim have a chazaka, as we said in the Mishnah, right? They're 3 years. But Rish Lakish says that Godris don't have chazaka. Interesting. So there's basically two. When we talk about chazaka, there's like two kinds of chazakas. We've really only been talking about one kind of chazaka. We haven't really gotten to the other kind of chazaka. The chazaka we've been talking about is obviously Reuven is on Shimon's property for 3 years, and he claims that Shimon sold it to him, and he's been there for 3 years. That's one kind of chazaka. But there's another kind of chazaka that we've talked about in the past, right? For example, karka is nicknamed bekesav b'shtar of chazaka. That you can acquire property by paying, right? Reuven can acquire Shimon's property by paying money to Shimon with a document that says that Shimon sold it to Reuven, or with chazaka. That chazaka that we're talking about is not that, not that he goes and buys it from Shimon and then stays for 3 years. No. The chazaka we've been talking about until now is that, well, what if Reuven loses his document, then how can we still know that he bought it from Shimon? Well, if he's had it for 3 years, that can kind of be in lieu of the document, whatever. When we say that kesef, that karka is nicknamed because of shtar b'chazaka, that's a different kind of chazaka. That's like, for example, you can, put up a fence around the field and say, we're going to get to that yet. We haven't really gotten to that yet. So I'm not yet in a place where I can, talk too much about it in detail. But like, the things you could do to show ownership of the field, and at that point you've acquired it. So therefore, Rish Lakish says that godris, they learned chazaka. What does that mean? What are godris? Godris are like animals that move around, that walk around. So for example, if I have a sheep, so then the assumption is it's my sheep, right? The chazaka, right? It's in my possession. The chazaka is that it's mine. The chazaka is, we assume that it's mine. I have it, it's mine. So the thing is, Rish Lakish says when it comes to like sheep, the fact that I have a sheep that in and of itself doesn't mean that it's mine, because sheep is something that moves around. It could be that it belongs to Shimon and it just roamed into my property, and that's why it's there. Not because I own it, but because it came in on its own. Or maybe I found it and I brought it in. But that doesn't mean that it's mine. Right? So things that can move around, and an eved can move around, you can't make a chazaka on. The fact that you have it doesn't mean that it's yours automatically. So now, the Mishnah had said that avodim that avodim have a chazaka after 3 years. Now remember, we're kind of mixing up these two kinds of chazakas. Right? So we're saying in our Mishnah that the avodim have chazaka after 3 years. Avodim yeshem chazaka. What do you mean avodim have chazaka? V'amar Rish Lakish agodrus ein lehem chazaka. But Rish Lakish says that animals and things that move around don't have a chazaka. Amar Rava, so Rava clarifies, we're talking about two different chazakas. Ein lehem chazaka la'alter. Godris, right? Godris, you can't have a chazaka immediately. Meaning the fact that I have a sheep in my possession, or in this case, the fact that I have an eved in my possession, doesn't mean that it's my eved. But if this eved was with me for 3 years, and I claim that I bought the eved from Shimon, and then nobody gave me a hard time for 3 years, well, that's a different story. In that case, there could be a chazaka. There is a chazaka after 3 years. On my Rava says, Rava, imaya kohen muto ba'arisa. It says Rava, but if this eved was a baby in a crib who doesn't move around, well then, since it doesn't move around, the fact that I have the eved does mean that it belongs to me. Yesh lo chazaka la'alter, so then there is an immediate chazaka. If the baby eved is in my possession, it's mine. The assumption is it's mine. Pshita, that's obvious. The baby's not going anywhere, so it should be like any other thing that doesn't move around, that if it's in my possession, it's assumed that it's mine. Lo tzricha de islay ima. Well, okay, so the chiddush here is that it's, even though it's a scenario where the mother of the eved, of this baby eved, also works in the house, in Reuven's house. So Ma'uditema, I may have thought nechush dilma ime ailose lahasam. Maybe what happened is maybe Reuven doesn't own this baby eved, but that his mother brought him to Reuven's house because the mother works in Reuven's house, and then she forgot the eved there, and that's why the eved's there. But the eved doesn't belong to Reuven. Kamashman ima lo menashe bara. So the chiddush is, what it's saying is that a mother would not forget her child. Right, this mother would not forget her child at Reuven's house, and therefore it's not talking about a situation where the eved does not belong to Reuven and that the mother forgot the eved there. No, if the eved is in Reuven's house, it belongs to Reuven. Hanu ize de achlu chushla ben ardoya. There were these goats that were eating chushla and ardoya. Chushla is this like peeled barley or something. So these goats went in. Right, I guess, I don't know. Shimon's goats went into Reuven's field and ate his barley. Also, Mari Chushla Tavsinu, so Reuven chapped Shimon's goats. Right? Shimon's goats came into Reuven's property and ate Reuven's barley. Reuven chapped the goats. Vavakotoin Tuva, and Reuven says, Shimon, look, your goats ate lots and lots of barley. You owe me lots and lots of money. Amravua The Shmuel says, Avod the Shmuel Yochol Liton Ad Kedei Dmein. Look, Reuven can claim up to the value of the goats. The Ibai Omar, how come? Because of Amigo. Well, if he wanted to, if he was lying, he could have said, Omar Lekuchasem Biyadi, he could have said they belong to me. Look, they're my possession, they're mine. So since he could have just said, these are my goats, but he didn't. He said, look, I understand they're your goats. But he could have said that they're my goats, and he would have gotten that value. So therefore, he can claim from Shimon up to the value of the goats, which theoretically he could have argued were his, but he didn't. But one second, didn't Rish Lakish say that Godras don't have chazaka, animals don't have a chazaka, that Reuven can't just say, look, well, I have them, so therefore they're mine? So shiny Ize, it's different when it comes to goats, the Mesir Leroy, because goats, I don't know, they have like a mind of their own or something like that, and therefore you give them to, what does Rashi say? What does Rashbam say? No. No, Shani is it the Avam the Godres Ninu came in the Mesir the Roy Mitoch Meshuna Sen Yosef Me'elim Mukhvasim Ve'in Odom Yochel Achzik Boim B'derech Lefichach Yeshan Chazaka. I guess they're harder to kind of like control, so therefore you send them off to a professional, to a shepherd, and therefore because all goats are with shepherds, so therefore the assumption is that they're being shepherded and they're not roaming off into other places. Therefore, if Reuven, therefore sort of the assumption is that if somebody is in possession of a goat, it does really belong to him, because either it would belong to him or it would be with the shepherd, and it wouldn't be roaming off into other places. So therefore, that is why specifically by goats, you would be able to have this claim of, it's in my possession, it belongs to me. And but what about in the morning and at night? Meaning, how would the goat get to the shepherd? Apparently, the owner of the goat would just let out the goat, and the goat would make its way to the shepherd, and maybe during that journey, it ended up in Reuven's property, but it doesn't actually belong to Reuven. So, but this happened in Nardo, right? As we said, so this happened in Nardo, and Benardo Tayoy Shriche. There are lots of Arabs over there, and the Arabs would take the goats, and therefore Miyad Liyad Mishalme, and therefore you couldn't just allow your goats to make their way to the shepherd, because they may have been picked off on the way by these thieves, and therefore the owner would take the goat directly to the shepherd, and the shepherd would bring it back directly to the owner. And therefore, they're really, the assumption is that whoever has the goat, it belongs to them. And that's why, theoretically, Reuven could have made the claim that these are my goats, and therefore he can claim up to the value of the goats. Alright. Okay. So now we have this, so in the Mishnah, we have this distinction between a stei beis habal and a stei beis hashlochin. That a stei beis hashlochin is a field that you have that does not rely only on rainwater, but rather on irrigation. And therefore, you can have a yield throughout the year, because there's always water available through the irrigation channels. And therefore, the chazak would be 3 years, 36 months. But Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Akiva said that, okay, but then when it comes to a stei beis habal, a field that relies solely on rainwater, so then you have the rainy season, and that's when you get your crop once a year. So therefore, you could theoretically condense the chazaka into, according to Rabbi Shmuel, 18 months, according to Rabbi Akiva, 14 months. Right? Both Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva would agree that the middle year you would need all 12 months. Rabbi Shmuel on either bookend would add 3 months. Rabbi Akiva on either bookend would add 1 month. So according to Rabbi Shmuel, it's 12 plus 3 plus 3 is 18. According to Rabbi Akiva, it's 12 plus 1 plus 1, which is 14. Because basically the first year you can kind of like do the planting before Rosh Hashanah, then you have the whole year from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, then the next year you can kind of do the planting after Rosh Hashanah, and then you can kind of just spread it out over 3 years, but it would only be either 18 or 14 months. Fine. Now, Lema near Ika Benayos. Let's say that the nafkamina between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva is does plowing alone enough to make a chazaka? So if Reuven is trying to make a chazaka on what he claims was Shimon's field, So Rabbi Kiva would say that simply plowing on the field would be enough to make would be relevant. So if he just kind of plows the first year and then he has the whole 12 months and then does, plows again, so that's enough to make a chazaka. Therefore he says 14 months. And Rabbi Shmuel says, no, you would actually have to have a crop, and therefore you need 3 months on either end. So Lema Nir, Ika Ben Av says the nafkamina is whether plowing makes a chazaka. Rabbi Shmuel Savar Nir lo avi chazaka, Rabbi Kiva Savar Nir avi chazaka. Rabbi Shmuel says plowing is not enough to make a chazaka. Rabbi Kiva says plowing is enough to make a chazaka. V'tizbra Rabbi Kiva my area chodesh afilu yom echad nami. But then the Gemara says 1 second. But if we were saying that according to Rabbi Kiva, plowing alone is enough to make a chazaka, I think I hear the power washers coming. I can feel when they're coming. There's you can feel the building shake a little bit. Yep, it's getting closer. Yep, here they come. I don't even know where they were coming from. They were probably far away, but you could feel the ground shake. It's like you can, it's like a sixth sense. I know when the power washers are coming. It's just the slightest kind of, here they come. There's this slightest kind of rumble. It starts off very gentle. It's like called mamadaka. And it starts very gentle. You feel the slightest rumble and shake. And then it gets closer and closer until it's just overpowering. So now they're probably just chatting amongst themselves. And then within 5 minutes, we're probably going to be underwater. Akoponim. Where was I? So where were we? So we wanted to say that according to Rabbi Kiva, the plowing should be enough to make a chazaka. But if plowing is enough to make a chazaka, so then why do you need a whole month according to Rabbi Kiva on either side? I'm not a farmer, but I guess potentially a day could be enough, however long it takes to plow. You're done. You have your chazaka for the year. So rather, according to Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva, the plowing is not enough to make a chazaka. The question is, how much does the fruit have to grow in order to qualify for a chazaka? According to Rabbi Kiva, it has to grow a little bit. So, a month on this bookend and a month on that bookend is enough already to say, okay, you have a chazaka. But according to Rabbi Yishmael, a little bit is not enough. You have to have a proper growth, which takes 3 months. Therefore, it's 3 months on either bookend. But neither one would say that plowing alone is enough. Near enu chazaka. Okay, so the Tanakama says plowing does not make a chazaka. Now those who taka say that plowing does make a chazaka. Man yeshom, who's the one who says the plowing does make a chazaka? Rav Chizda says Rav Acha, the Tanya is winning a brisa. Neira shana v'zara beis. If you plowed it 1 year and then seeded it for the next 2 years, neira beis, or plowed it for 2 years, v'zara shana, and you seeded it for 1 year, ain't a chazaka. It's not a chazaka. Because plowing doesn't contribute to the chazaka. Rabbi Acha Omer Arezo chazaka. Rabbi Acha says plowing does contribute to the chazaka. So it goes, Rabbi Acha changes Ashi to Acha. Rabbi Acha says, Rabbi Acha she'elis kol gedolei ador. I asked all of the great sages of the generation, and they said, Nir Hareze chazaka. And they said, Take, plowing does make a chazaka, like I'm saying. So Bivi to Rav Nachman, my time at the Manda Omer Nir have a chazaka. What's pshat with the opinion who says that plowing would make a chazaka? Hayi Rabbi Acha, and apparently Kol Gedolei Ador. Because lo ovid inish dechrivu le'la'ari v'shosik. The reason why plowing makes a chazaka, that if Reuven is plowing on Shimon's field, that can contribute to the chazaka, is because Shimon would never in a million years allow somebody to come to his field, if he really owned it, and just start plowing it as if it's his field. No way. The second Reuven shows up with his plow, Shimon's like, hey, get off my property. What do you think you're doing? My time in the Mandomer near Lo Avi Chazaka. And what's pshat? According to the Tanakam, who says that plowing, or according also to Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Kiva, apparently, that plowing does not make a chazaka. Well, because fakert. Punkt fakert. Meimar Amar kol shiva v'shiva dekarvu le'ayobei. What do you mean? Punkt fakert. Shimon is like, wait, what the heck is going on here? Do I believe my eyes? This is a dream come true. Is Reuven really coming and plowing my field for me for free? I couldn't have thought of a better scenario. I'm sitting here at my pool, sipping pina coladas. I got somebody plowing my field for me. This is great. And then, I'll just say, thanks for plowing my field, and I'll scram skedaddle and have a plowed field. I'm ready to seed it. This is perfect. So the Rebbe says, Shiva v'shiva de kaibu. Every single tooth in that plow, the Ayol Bay, should go into my land. Let him plow as much as he can. That would be great. So therefore, Reuven plowing on Shimon's land does not make a chazaka. It makes him an idiot. All right. The people of Pum Naira sent to Rav Nachman by Rav Chizda, Yilamdeinu Rabbeinu, teach us, O Master. Nira havi chazaka or la havi chazaka. Does plowing contribute to a chazaka or not? So Rav Nachman by Rav Chizda says, well, Rav Acha v'chol Gedolei Ador, apparently Rav Acha and all the Gedolei Ador, Amri, nir harich ze chazaka. That plowing does make a chazaka. Rav Nachman by Yitzchak says, whoa. Rabusa the Mechshev Gaver, what? Just because lots of people say so means something? Harav Ushmuel bebavav Yishmael Rabbi Kiva Beit Yisrael, Amri nir lo havi chazaka. 1 second. You're saying that Rav Acha and apparently all these Gedolei Ador say that that plowing is a chazaka. Nir havi chazaka. But Rav and Shmuel say nir lo havi chazaka. Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva say nir lo havi chazaka. Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva masnisini. As we saw, Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva in our Mishnah, that they said that you have to plow for at least either 14 months or 18. That you have to make a chazaka over at least 14 months or 18 months. If plowing was enough, it could just be 12 months and 2 days would be enough. So both Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva say that plowing does not make a chazaka. Rav Mahi, how do we know that Rav says that plowing does not make a chazaka? When we say that by a stay beis abal, Rabbi Akiva says 14 months is enough to make a chazaka, or Shmuel says 18 months is enough to make a chazaka. That's their opinions. The Chacham disagree, and they say Chazkasa Gimel Shana Miyom Liyom. The Chacham disagree. They say even by Beis Abal you need 36 months. Miyom Liyom Lemutimai. When they say that it has to be 3 years from day to day, to the exclusion of what? My lav Lemute Nir Delo, which clearly means that plowing would not be enough to make a chazaka, right? You need 36 months, not 12 months in a day. Not like Rabbi Shmuel says 18 months, not like Rabbi Kiva says 14 months, and certainly not plowing, which would simply be 12 months and 2 days, right? 1 day on either bookend. You need 36 months. Shmuel, how do we know that Shmuel says that plowing does not make a chazaka? Dam Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Zod Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Kiva, that when Rabbi Shmuel says in the Mishnah that you can plant and you can harvest grapes, and then you can harvest the figs, and then you can harvest the olives, and those three would make, right, those three separate harvests would make a chazaka, even in 1 year. So Shmuel says that's the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. Aval Chacham say Ad Sheyigdor Shalosh Gideros v'Yivtzor Beis Betziros. Ad Sheyigdor Shalosh Gideros v'Yivtzor Gimel Betziros v'Yimtzor Gimel Mesikos. But the Chacham say that no, you can't make a chazaka in 1 year by harvesting 3 different crops. No, it would have to be, either, harvest the figs 3 times, or the olives 3 times, or the grapes 3 times, i.e. 3 different years. And therefore you need 3 years, and it would not be enough to simply plow to make a chazaka. You'd have to have 3 harvests over 3 years. What's the nafka between Rav, who says that you need 36 months, and according to Shmuel, who says that you need 3 harvests? The difference is, if you have a young palm tree who produces fruits in less than 3 years, you'll have 3 years yields in less than 36 months. So Rav would say that's not enough because you need 36 months. Shmuel would say it is enough because you have 3 harvests. Alright, well friends, that was Daf Lamed Vav, Masechta BavaBasra. Peace out.